to Fresh Thinking by Optiro, the podcast where we explore technical concepts behind better mining decisions and practical resource estimation. I'm Melanie Bulley, and today I'm joined by Senzeni Matondi, Principal Consultant here at Snowden Optiro in our Bristol office in the UK. Today we're tackling the question that comes up almost in every mining operation at some point. If our resource model is good, why doesn't it reconcile? When reconciliation doesn't meet expectations, the first instinct is often to question the resource model or the grade control model. But the reality is far more complex. A model can be statistically robust and still produce disappointing operational reconciliation. So today we're going to unpack why that happens. So let's start with what is probably the biggest misconception. People often assume that if reconciliation is poor, then the estimation must be wrong. Is that actually true?
No, not necessarily. One of the most important things to understand is that an estimate can be statistically correct while still performing poorly in day-to-day mining. That's because estimation isn't simply about reproducing grades, it's about making predictions. And every estimation method introduces some degree of uncertainty.
Grade smoothing is one of those terms people hear regularly, but perhaps don't fully appreciate operationally. What exactly does it mean?
Think of it this way. The raw sample data contains natural highs and lows. So some samples are exceptionally high grade, whilst others are much lower. When we estimate block grades, we're averaging information from nearby samples, right? And that averaging is necessary because it reduces uncertainty and produces stable estimates. But then it also reduces the natural variability that actually exists in the ore body. And that's when, you tend to overestimate in areas that are with low grades and underestimate in highly high-grade environments.
That sounds really subtle. Why does smoothing become such a problem for reconciliation?
Mining decisions are made locally, that is on a local scale. So if high-grade blocks are underestimated, several things can happen. You understate or underestimate the contained metal, or near the cutoff grade may be classified as ore, and valuable mining opportunities can be overlooked. So on the other hand, when low-grade blocks are overestimated, waste may be sent to the processing plant, and that increases dilution, right? And lowers the mill head grades, ultimately worsening reconciliation. So smoothing works in both directions. It reduces the extremes that operations actually need to identify.
So that's where conditional bias comes into the conversation. Could you explain what that actually means?
Certainly. Conditional bias is the tendency for an estimation method to underestimate high grades and overestimate low grades. So importantly, it doesn't necessarily affect the overall grade of the model. In fact, globally, the estimate may be extremely accurate. The problem is the local prediction that is in the local scale. But then we understand that mining doesn't happen like on the entire model. You have to mine smaller sections at a time. And this is what we call a selective mining unit, or SMU. If an individual block grades are consistently pulled towards the average grade, the model then becomes less effective at distinguishing your ore from your waste. And that's exactly where reconciliation begins from.
That's a really important distinction, because many people judge a model by whether it reproduces the average grade.
Exactly. So an average grade is only part of the story. You can have a model that reproduces the global tons and grades extremely well, yet still make poor operational decisions every day. So that's the greatest risk that occurs around the cutoff grade. That's where relatively small estimation errors can change whether the material is mined as ore or discarded as waste. So these local decisions accumulate over time and eventually appear as poor reconciliation.
So how do resource geologists evaluate whether a model is preserving enough for local variability?
There's several tools that we can use. Rather than focusing only on global accuracy, we also assess how well a model predicts local grades. So measures such as your kriging efficiency, your slope of regression, the appropriate block size selection, the search neighborhood, the kriging neighborhood analysis, your KNA, they're also quite important. All these combined help us to understand whether conditional bias has been minimized. No model completely eliminates smoothing. The objective is to find the right balance between the statistical stability and preserving enough local variability to support operational decision making.
So if someone listening remembers just one thing from today's discussion, what would it be?
I would say this: a model reproduces the correct average grade isn't automatically a good operational model. If local grades have been excessively smoothed, the model may struggle to distinguish ore from waste, even though the overall global statistics look excellent. Effective grade control is about much more than matching your averages. It's about producing estimates that support confident mining decisions and ultimately improve your reconciliation.
That's a great way to finish.
Thank you.
Reconciliation isn't simply a test of whether average grade was correct. It's a measure of whether the model supported the right decisions where they mattered most, which is the mining phase. Understanding conditional bias helps bridge the gap between statistical accuracy and operational performance. If you'd like to explore these concepts in more depth, Snowden Optiro's mine-to-mill grade control and mine reconciliation course provides practical techniques for evaluating estimation performance, minimizing conditional bias, and improving ore control to achieve better reconciliation. Senzeni, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. Leave us a review and share the episode with your colleagues. Until next time, thanks for listening.